Hi and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. It is just after 4 o'clock. I'm barely in the house after work today, and we have a big project ahead of us that I want to complete tonight. So, look what I've got. Is this beautiful or what? This is a collection of 13 different types of legumes. It is Bob's Red Mill 13 bean soup mix. Then I want to show you something else. I got a little carried away, and so I have 25 pounds of this soup mix that we're going to be doing something with, a lot of somethings with, over the next little while. Today we're going to make chili using these beans, and we're also going to cover 4 important concepts, and we'll get started on that in just a moment. I've just washed my hands, and now I'm just going to spray our work area with Stearamine. And I've covered Stearamine in several videos. It is a great sanitizer disinfectant. So we're going to make sure that we have a good clean work area. Concept number 1 that we're going to talk about is, what if I have a recipe that I really like and I want to can it? What's the best thing to do? Well, if you look right down here on this countertop, I have the recipe for Bob's 13 bean chili right here. And over here, I have the USDA recipe for Chili Con Carne. And so one of the things that you can do, which I'm going to do today and show you, is because I want to kind of do a blending of both, I have both recipes in front of me, but I want to be sure that what I end up with is aligned with the USDA recipe. Now, this is one way that you can deviate a little bit from the USDA so long as it is pretty well aligned. So we're going to be looking at both of these recipes as we proceed. All right, so I have started off by soaking, let me tell you exactly how many cups, 3 cups of this 13 bean mix right here. This is my jam pan, my Maslin pan, my favorite. And you see that the water is a little bit murky. So we are going to drain this water. Do a quick rinse. Now I am going to cover these beans with water, and we are going to pre-cook them for about 30 minutes. So that is our second concept that is really important when you are working with beans. Okay, so we have clear water. I'm going to put the rest of these in that came out when I was draining it. So concept number 2 is, when we work with canning beans, we soak them for a number of hours, overnight is best, and then we pre-cook them. But here's the most important part. We do not cook them all the way. They are going to be in our pressure canner for 75 minutes, and that is certainly going to cook them all the way through. So if we cook them here first all the way and then put them in the canner, that's going to be like double cooking them, and it is going to reduce the food value and make them more mushy. So I'm only wanting to pre-cook these beans for about 30 minutes. And I'm going to put these over on the stove, and we'll get these started, and they are only going to simmer. I have my butane stove set up here. I just barely turned the flame on. This is my 12 foot, it's not quite that big, 12-inch cast iron skillet. Over to the side, we have the portable carbon monoxide detector alarm. And that's just a safety precaution. This is safe to use in your kitchen so long as you use a little bit of ventilation. This is preheating, and I'm just going to spray a little bit of spray there so it doesn't, the meat will not go into a bare pan. We'll let that heat up for a moment. Right here, I have weighed out 3 pounds of hamburger exactly. I want to follow this recipe pretty much exactly. I'm making a few little, well, 1 or 2 little adjustments, which I'm going to tell you about. But for the most part, I do want to follow the USDA guidelines because this is going to have beans in it, it's going to have meat in it. It will be a little bit viscous, and we want to be sure that we have enough liquid in there, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. So this is starting to smoke, and so I'm just going to put a little bit of this in at a time, about 1 pound at a time. And here comes concept number 3. Whenever you are canning hamburger, the USDA says to brown it. We do not want to cook it all the way through. So that is clearly in USDA guidelines. But the thing that is not in the USDA guidelines is the idea that we do not want to pulverize this hamburger to the point that the little pieces are the size of BBs, because that contributes to the viscosity of things like chili or meat sauce. What we want is we just barely want to brown these, and we want them in the size of marbles, about marble size. The reason for that is because of the viscosity for one, and the second thing is so that these pieces of hamburger won't clump up together and create a block of meat that is difficult for heat to penetrate. Okay, now you've seen how much I have heated this meat. It is not very much. It is browned. It's less than 2 minutes. And so I'm going to get it out of here and put it into a separate bowl. This is fairly lean beef. And the good thing about doing it this way is that it is going to add its juices right to the mixture. All right, here comes our 2nd pound. One of the ingredients is going to be a cup of chopped peppers. Now we can use any chopped peppers. These are sweet peppers and they are freeze-dried. Because I'm going to be particular about the amount of liquid that goes in here, I do not want these peppers sucking up any of the liquid from the mixture, so I am going to rehydrate them right here. And for freeze-dried things, it just takes a couple of minutes to rehydrate them. There's still plenty of pink in this meat, which is just fine because there is way more brown than there is pink. And so we've browned most of it. All right, here's the last of our hamburger. With this last batch of hamburger, I am now going to put in the other things. So I'm just going to scoop these peppers in. They are rehydrated. I'm saving this pepper water. You'll see why in just a moment. I'm putting in 1.5 cups of chopped onions. And again, we don't want this food to be all the way done. We want it just to be a little bit done. All right, now for the powdered ingredients. It calls from 3 to 6 teaspoons of chili powder. I'm putting in 3. If we need more heat, we will add salsa. Then here is 3 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of pepper. And the Bob's Red Mill calls for garlic. The USDA does not, so this is one deviation that I am making. And so for the amount that I'm making here, I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. I've just turned the flame off. We're going to wait for the beans to get ready, and then we're going to mix everything together. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so in the pot now, we have all of the beans, all of the hamburger, and the other things that were in that mixture. And the flame is going on. And we're going to add the last piece, and that is 2 quarts of crushed tomatoes. I'm using 4 cans of petite diced tomatoes. Each of these is only 15 ounces, just short of 15 ounces. So because I'm going to be liquid conscious and I want all the liquid that is needed, I am going to add a little bit. I'm going to add that rehydrating water from the peppers so that we'll be sure and have the right amount of water. This is a hot pack recipe, which means that everything has to be hot. And everything was hot, or fairly hot, except for the tomatoes that I just added. We are going to let this simmer together for about 5 minutes, and then we are going to get it into the jars. So here is the final chili. Oh my goodness, it looks so, so good. But I'm not going to taste it because it's still half raw. And so we'll be doing the tasting after we take it out of the jar. I can still see pink meat and so forth. Now, here is key concept number 4, and it has to do with heat transfer. Heat transfer is critical in canning. I've talked about it a lot, but look how thick and viscous this mixture is. It's very, very thick. And that is why the USDA says we should can only in pint jars, not in quart jars. I will not do this recipe in quart jars. And here's the reason why. It has to do with heat transfer. Now, the way heat transfers in a jar is through conduction and convection. And convection is the fastest. You all know what convection currents are. If you have ever turned a heater on in your house, the heated air will travel upwards. That is a convection current going up. Buzzards ride convection currents way up high in the sky as the morning sun heats the earth and those convection currents rise. Those buzzards will ride those convection currents for hours. So convection is the fastest way to heat. It requires a medium to move with it. So the air is moving. In this case, it is the liquid inside this jar that is moving for the convection piece. Now, we prefer convection because it's faster, but this is so viscous that the other piece is it will also be doing some conduction heat transfer, and that's touch to touch. And that is like when you put your hand on a hot iron or a hot stove. One piece is hot and that heat is transferred to something else through touch. And so the food pieces are touching each other. One gets hot, it transfers the heat to the other one. So we have conduction, which is very slow. Convection is fast. So this is thick and viscous. If we were to can this in a quart jar, it would not get the heat transferred efficiently enough to kill any botulism spores that might be present. And so while I love this chili for its thickness, I would never can this in quarts, only in pints. Now, what does that mean in terms of a meal for Jim and me? Well, what it means is if we have to open 2 pints, we open 2 pints. Jim has just retired, yay for Jim, and so he's going to be eating some meals alone at home, and so these will be very convenient for him to have here at home. Just finishing up these last 2 jars. I'm first checking for air bubbles. Liquid is up to the 1-inch line. Wiping the rims with a vinegar paper towel to cut any oil that might be there. Lid, ring, finger tight. The jars had just come out of the dishwasher, and so they were warm, hot, and the canner outside is also simmering with 2 inches of water in the bottom. The mixture is hot. And so we are ready to go. With this recipe, there's about this much left. So Jim and I are going to have, I'm going to finish cooking that, and then we'll have it for our dinner along with a few other things too. Okay, we'll meet you out at the canner. The water is simmering. I have the first 6 in here. We're going to put 6 on the bottom and 6 on the top. And so that the bottom ones are in, I'm putting the rack now on the top of those. Oh, and the water, double check the water. It cannot come up over the top of those jars, and it comes up about halfway, so that's perfect. And I'll be back with the last 6. I cheated. I kept one back in the kitchen because we have to have enough for Jim and me to both have some. So we're only going to process 11, and I'll finish cooking what's in the kitchen for our dinner. So I'm putting 5 in here. And now the lid. I'm going to turn it up a bit. All right, and now we're going to wait for it to start blowing steam from the vent. And then once that steam starts blowing, we'll time it for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, it has replaced all of the air inside the canner with steam. We'll put the weight on the top, and we'll wait for the dial to come up to 13, and then we will start timing for 75 minutes. These are pints. It takes 75 minutes. We'll then, after that, we'll do a natural cool down. So we'll be back out here probably in about, an hour and a half, and probably closer to 2 hours. So see you soon. It's dark out here and the lighting is terrible. But the good news is that the canner is finished, so we can get these pints of chili out. Some of you are going to be amazed that I'm going to bring these hot jars out into a winter evening. It's probably about 30 degrees right now. I am going to explain the science behind why it's okay to do that. Oh my gosh, these are beautiful. But I won't do it tonight. I will do it at a later time when we have better light. So I'm going to take these out of the canner and tell you that this is delicious. This is the first time I've made it with Bob's 13 bean mix, and it turned out just great. Now, we did add a little bit more heat by adding some salsa, and it did make a difference. So next time I will add a little bit more chili powder. We will leave these out here for about an hour, make sure that all of them have popped, and then we'll bring them in the house. And they'll be fine. They will be fine out here for a couple of hours, really. And I will explain that in a later video. Okay, 11 pints. So there they are, and they are just really beautiful. Looks like we did have a little bit of siphoning, but not bad. And so I hope you can remember the 4 key concepts that we talked about in this video. It is really important to consider those things when you are doing something like chili. So we've taken a picture. There went one good. We've taken a picture of what we had for supper. It's the lead-in frame with the title across it. And it is just every bit as good as it looks in that picture. Thanks for joining us for this video, and we will see you next time.